How many of you have a morning ritual? If you're like me, you've tried many times to incorporate something new into your morning, some habit that could really help you, but you have trouble making them stick, right? So this video is about taking something you want to do as part of your morning routine and making it so tiny and easy to do that you do it automatically without any motivation. But first, I want to tell you about what I want to do. Last year, my parents and I took this trip to Cambodia and Laos. And one thing we really wanted to see was the morning alms procession in Luang Prabang, Laos. Luang Prabang is this beautiful, quaint little town that overlooks two rivers. It's littered with temples and pagodas. And every morning, the monks proceed in a line, walking through the town and collect alms from local people. And this usually happens around, 5:30 in the morning, so at the break of dawn. And so we got up early to watch this, and it was really beautiful, despite there being, of course, a lot of tourists taking pictures and tourists wanting to participate and give the monks food, and that's a whole nother story. But it was a really beautiful morning to get up that early and to see all the local people, sitting there quietly, prostrating themselves underneath the monks and feeding them, handfuls of sticky rice and fruit and other things to eat. And my attention was really drawn to this one lady who was this older lady. She was probably in her mid-60s. And it was just the way she was sitting and her eagerness to give out the food. And she was all by herself on the road. There was no one to her left or right. She was wearing this white shirt. And I just couldn't take my eyes off her for some reason. And so after the morning alms ceremony, my parents and I, we went to the morning market, highly recommended, in Luang Prabang. And we got some cow soy noodles. Incredible. And on our way back to the hotel, I saw the same lady. There she was in her shop house, which was directly across from where she had sat in the morning. She was arranging her water and arranging chips and other confectionery items to display, to sell. And we made eye contact and we both smiled at each other. And even though we did many amazing things that trip, we visited the temples of Angkor and Siem Reap, Cambodia, for example, which are stunning. What I really remember the most is that lady and that morning ritual. Because if she's in her mid-60s, I'm guessing she's done this for decades. Can you imagine waking up every morning at 4:30 in the darkness to wash rice, to cook it, to prepare it, then to bring it across the street, put down your rug, sit on the sidewalk, and hand out rice to the monks day after day, week after week, year after year, decade after decade. And it's such a beautiful tradition. And I know other religions have almsgiving traditions, which is fantastic. But you don't have to be Buddhist or religious to see the beauty of starting your morning that way, starting your morning giving. And for so long, I've struggled to overcome a scarcity mindset. And I think as part of my morning ritual, what better thing to do to start the day than to see my hand open, right? And to see my hand open in an offering to someone else. What must that say to myself, right? That I have plenty to give. I have an abundance to give. So that's what I want to make as part of my morning ritual. I'm not saying I'm going to make food and serve it for an hour and a half every morning. That's way too big of a jump for me. But I want to start with tiny habits of giving in the morning. So the question is how to do this. Because if you're like me, you've really struggled to make a morning routine stick. For the longest time, I've wanted to meditate in the morning and start my morning that way with a clear mind. But I've been able to do it weeks continually, but not months. I do it sometimes and then I don't do it. I'm not consistent at all. It's hard to do stuff in the morning personally because I do my best work in the morning. I have the clearest mind, but I also tend to wake up late. So, usually because I'm dancing the night before, right? So I'm already rushed in the morning, because I want to pounce on my most important task of the day. I want to just get started and get it done. And I don't have time to sit still for 10 minutes or even 5 minutes. And then you add on to that, messages you might get on your phone, work messages, and all of a sudden it's like you have a zoo in your head, a wild zoo of animals running everywhere, things you have to get done, and you've kind of lost your bearings for the day. You've lost that ability to do what you want to do. So I want to introduce a technique called Tiny Habits that has been proposed by BJ Fogg. Okay, and I hope this helps you and me install new rituals into our morning routine. So BJ Fogg is a behavior scientist at Stanford. He is the founder and director of the Stanford Design Behavior Lab. He's researched and taught courses on behavior design and persuasive technology for over 20 years. And some of his former students include the co-founder of Instagram, who grew, Instagram into an app that has now over, 1 billion users, as well as the head of growth for companies like Uber and Facebook. And I heard that Nur Ayel, the author who wrote the book Hooked, also sat in on his classes. So yes, this is about using the same techniques that companies like Facebook have used to hook us onto their platforms, using the same techniques to structure and design our morning so that our behavior is automatic. So why are tiny habits so effective? Because tiny is something you can do right now. Tiny is low risk. And tiny, and I think this is the most important point, tiny requires no motivation or willpower. And there's so much good stuff in this book, and I plan to read it many more times. But here's the anatomy of a tiny habit. You can think of it as A, B, C. There's an anchor, there's a tiny behavior, and then there's a celebration. Let me give 3 examples of a tiny habit. The formula is after I, ... I will ... And then to wire this habit into my brain, I will ... Let's say that you've been kind of down and you want to start your day with more bounce and more positivity. BJ Fogg has invented the Maui habit. And this is after I wake up and put my feet on the floor, I will say, it's going to be a great day. And to wire this habit into my brain, I will smile. All right. What about flossing? Let's say you're having trouble flossing every day. So a tiny habit could be after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. And to wire this habit into my brain, I will do a fist pump. Oh yeah. Okay, let's say you want to be more physically active. You're not exercising. Well, how about this? After I flush the toilet, I will do 2 push-ups. And to wire this habit into my brain, I will do a celebration dance. After I do my 2 push-ups, okay? And you can see why these tiny habits work because, let's face it, if you pull out your dental floss and you floss one tooth, you're probably going to floss more than one tooth. And likewise, after you flush the toilet, if you're down on the ground already, why not do 3 push-ups or 4 or 5, right? So again, the tiny habit makes it easy to do. You have no excuse. So BJ Fogg has put forth this Fogg behavior model, which shows us a way to think clearly about behavior. And the formula for this is B equals MAP. In other words, a behavior happens when motivation, ability, and a prompt converge. And you can see why, for example, scrolling through Instagram in bed is a behavior so many of us do. Because do we have the ability to do it? Yes, it's super easy. All you're doing is swiping with your finger. Do you have the motivation to do it? Of course. It's mindless entertainment. And hopefully, we learn something or we see something our friends have written or posted. So our motivation is high. And is there a prompt? Of course, your phone. It's always with you. So our phones are probably full of, What about if a colleague asked you to show him the cover of a book, of your favorite book? Well, that's easy. You could just pull out the book and show him the cover. It's easy to do. Your motivation's high, so that falls above the action line. But what if your colleague asked you to read that book to him? Well, maybe you don't have the ability or time to do that. Maybe you don't like how your voice sounds, and you're probably less motivated to do that because that would take a long time. So that behavior would probably fall below the action line. So let's take some of my failed morning rituals. Again, meditating every morning. Why was I not able to make this part of my morning ritual? Well, what was the prompt? I didn't have a prompt, right? I just knew I wanted to meditate in the morning, but I didn't attach it to what BJ Fogg calls the trailing edge of an action. I just knew I wanted to do it in the morning, but I didn't connect it to, for example, after I flush the toilet, I sit down to meditate. Or after I have my first sip of coffee, I sit down to meditate. There was no prompt. Was I motivated to do it? Highly motivated. But of course, that motivation dropped when I started to miss days of meditating. Did I have the ability to do it? I probably had the ability to do a couple minutes of meditation without my mind going crazy. And that would seem reasonable, right? Oh, I'm only meditating for 3 minutes before my day. Who doesn't have 3 minutes? But of course, I tried to do 15, 20 minutes. And that's actually a lot of time in the morning, especially when you wake up late and you're eager to start working. I didn't really have the ability at the time to do it. And ability and motivation are related, right? If you see yourself doing something repeatedly and you're able to do it, you feel good about yourself and you do it more. But if you make the habit too intimidating and you don't have the time, the money, the physical energy, the mental capacity, and the routine to do that behavior, and you don't do it day after day, your motivation's going to drop. You're not going to want to do that anymore. Let me just share one more example, and I hope this helps you troubleshoot your own tiny habits or your own behaviors. Last year, I wanted to do a random act of kindness every day because, again, trying to overcome my scarcity mindset, I've received so much for free from everyone, from the sun, from the earth. I have so much to give, and I should give freely. Why not do random act of kindness every day? And in theory, this is a great idea. In practice, it's really hard to create a daily habit because, first of all, I had no prompt, right? I was depending on life to just show me something. Maybe someone looked sad. Maybe this person was spreading so much joy to others that I wanted to reward that person. Whatever it is, I was relying on a random circumstance for a prompt. Did I have the motivation to do it? Of course I did. I was highly motivated at the beginning of the year. In fact, all 15 times I did this random act of kindness came in January when I was highly motivated. But that motivation fell off once I realized I wasn't able to do it every day because my ability was actually not enough sometimes. Yeah, it's easy to buy someone food and give it to them, but let's say I wanted to give someone a flower. Well, where's the nearest flower or florist? Sometimes I couldn't find one, and then I'd spend, it'd be 45 minutes later, and I'd just be like, oh man, I haven't been able to find a flower to give to this person. So again, troubleshooting a behavior. Is there a prompt? Do you have the motivation to do it and be honest with yourself about that? And do you have the ability to do it? And you're only as strong as the weakest link in this ability chain of time, money, physical effort, mental effort, and your routine. So let's get back to that lady in Luang Prabang and how beautiful that ritual is of giving morning alms. How could I design this to be a part of my morning? So first thing I did was to list through my morning routine in broad strokes, turning off my alarm, waking up, putting my feet on the floor, going to drink some water, going to the bathroom, washing my face, shaving, brushing my teeth, freshening up, preparing and eating breakfast, dressing up and packing, putting on my shoes and leaving for work. Okay. Now each of those actions has many mini actions, and you want to find the trailing edge of that action. Instead of, for example, waking up, you could say, when I put my feet on the floor. Instead of brushing my teeth, you could say, after I put down my toothbrush, right? And that can serve as the anchor for your tiny behavior. So I listed all those things out, and aren't you glad I didn't make a video of that? And then I came up with the 3 tiny behaviors I wanted, all less than 30 seconds, that I could link to those anchor moments that would kind of connect thematically as well. So there's not a dissonance there. So for example, what I want to do in the morning is I want to pray for someone, for a loved one, for a friend, for a stranger even, for 30 seconds. Okay, so where am I going to put this tiny behavior? I'm going to put it right before I eat breakfast, because that's naturally a time where I give thanks and I want to be present. In my mind, I go through all the hands that worked to make this food. I go through all the resources that took to make this grain of oatmeal or this vegetable, whatever it is. It's a time where I'm naturally present and thankful. And that's a time for grace, right? To give thanks. So why not also pray for someone before I start to eat? After I sit down to eat my breakfast, I will say a 30-second prayer for someone, and I will celebrate with a big smile. All right? So that's my first tiny behavior. My second one is after I finish breakfast, I will spend 30 seconds writing a thank you note, writing a note of appreciation, writing a thoughtful note, or helping someone, connect them to another person or a resource. And if I have nothing on my mind, because I'll keep a little log of ways to help here, I will send someone a audio birthday voice message. Okay? Again, 30 seconds, and I will celebrate with I'm just getting started.
Are you finished, Mr. Slade?
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
My final tiny behavior will be, after I see the first person that day, I will greet them with a genuine, warm, huge smile. And after I do that, I will do a shoulder shimmy. Like Shaq. So some of you might say, like, Darren, this seems so tiny. This seems so insignificant. You're even comparing yourself to this lady who wakes up at 4:30 in the morning to feed the hungry, to feed monks, for an hour and a half every morning. Like, you're just talking about saying a prayer and smiling at someone and writing a thank you note. That's it. Well, I learned last year that tiny habits like doing pull-ups, and please see my past video, the pull-up principle, can grow into bigger life-changing habits. And I'm trusting that if I plant a small seed where it fits naturally in my day and I nurture its growth, it could get bigger and multiply. With my pull-ups, one pull-up has now turned into nearly 100 pull-ups a day. I feel fit. I feel strong. I want to exercise every day. I look forward to it. Who knows what these tiny habits of giving could grow and turn into, right? And some of you might also say, well, isn't the celebration like really corny? Well, actually, the celebration part of tiny habits is perhaps the most important, because emotions change behavior, not repetition or frequency. So it's really important that you mine your past to find a celebration that really you love. 2 ways to do this if you're having trouble are, what would you do if your favorite sports team won the championship? Yes. What would you do if you got a call from your dream employer and they told you, you got the job? What would your celebration be? And this could be more than a physical action. It could be, you can imagine like a favorite teacher, for example, patting you on the shoulder or, saying good job or whatever it is. So you need to come up with a celebration that would really wire that behavior into your brain and give it a positive emotion. Because one of the axioms of tiny habits is that people change best when they feel good, not when they feel bad. One last question you might have is, how many habits at a time? Well, after doing this with thousands of people, BJ Fogg recommends start with 3 tiny habits, and then after a month, maybe try adding 3 more. So I'm going to start with 3 habits. Let's go back to you. What's the morning habit that you want to add to your life that you're truly motivated to do? 3 final questions to kind of summarize this episode. What's your anchor moment? So what's the prompt to your behavior? And that could be based on you when you wake up, when you need to go to the bathroom. It could be based on a context. For example, seeing the first person that day. It could be based on an action, brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, putting on your shoes, etc. Okay, so what's your anchor? Second question, how can you scale back your habit to be super tiny and easy so that it's, less than 30 seconds and super easy to do? And what can you do to create a positive feeling inside yourself? Or BJ Fogg calls this a shine, right? What's your shine going to be for that behavior? So I'd love to hear about the new habit you're trying to incorporate into your morning routine and how you're trying to design that with an anchor, a behavior, and a celebration. And we'll see you next week on ACE.